affiliates.
Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio Live. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in beautiful Encino, California. And I'm here along with my best friend, my business partner and colleague of many years, Dr. Robert Jaffe, offering you an episode on codependency, addictions, relationships, and trauma. Dr. Jaffe, we are all ears to hear to see what do you have for us today.
Well, thank you for the introduction.
My pleasure.
So I'm happy to be here today, and we're going to talk more about addictions. And we've been talking for quite a while about codependency, and codependency being the largest addiction. Actually, today, when we were doing our show from 3 to 4, and we were talking about sexuality, we were talking about blockers to our sexual desires, and one of the things we talked about was how food is a blocker. So I'm going to say that actually food and codependence are the two biggest addictions that we have.
Yes.
That we have, yeah.
Right.
And that's not to discount all the other addictions, because there are a whole host of things that we as human beings find and use in order to block our emotional pain and to give us some feelings of relief. And what I say about all addictions is that addictions work to give us relief, but what they don't do is they don't give us release. Mm-hmm. So when we are using an addiction, we do feel better. And that's the whole point of using an addiction. You know, people would use addictions if they didn't work. And so since we don't know how we can get release, or that we can get release from the things that are causing us to want to use addictions, we turn to the next best thing and we get some temporary relief. The old commercial, what was it for Alka-Seltzer? Relief is just a swallow away, you know? And that's what we all want. We want relief, we want it now. So what we do is we use people, places, and things to give us the relief, but usually we're not even aware that we're doing it for that reason. We just think we like the activity or the drug that we're taking. Why do we use alcohol? I just have a glass of wine because it relaxes me, okay? Well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a glass of wine. We actually tried prohibition back in the 20s. It was a colossal failure. People were making gin in their bathtubs. And so, you know, if people want it, well, they're going to have it. But what does it mean to say I need a glass of wine to relax me? It means that I'm not already relaxed, right?
Yeah, otherwise, why would you say that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm not already relaxed, then what can I do to relax myself? And
have a drink.
I can have a drink, and I can do any other number of things that are addictive. Not to say that everything that you do is addictive, like having a glass of wine at night. That in and of itself is not an addictive thing, but it gives the sense that you can't do it yourself. You need something outside of you to help you.
And also, it's a indication that I'm not willing or ready to take a look at what makes me not to feel relaxed.
Right.
Right. In
Right.
other words, I'm kind of denying, and I don't want to become aware of factors that do not allow me to feel relaxed.
Hmm.
Maybe because if I do, then I have to feel responsibility to take care of those issues, and I don't want to feel responsible for the issues that don't keep me relaxed. So the easiest way is to go to the usual, zone of denial and just have a drink to make me feel
Exactly. Exactly. And so, how many people do that? Well, more than one,
more than one.
right? More than 1 million, right? Probably more than 1 billion,
Yes.
right? This,
Every day,
yeah,
several times a day.
every day, sometimes more than once a day. Some people don't. Some people just have like one glass of wine, or maybe a glass of a shot of whiskey when they get home, and they're able to leave it at that. And again, we're not making a judgment about that that you shouldn't do it. But what we're talking about here is it is what addictions are and what leads to addictions. And basically, it's about feeling better, right? And what we know now through a lot of research and a lot of neuropsychology and neurochemistry is that we actually have the chemicals in our brain to help us to relax. We actually, if we learn how to access those chemicals, we don't really need something outside of us in order to help us relax. Uh, is it easier to have a shot of whiskey or a glass of wine than to use your brain to relax yourself? The answer is it is much easier until you learn how to do it, right? So I have a client who gets, as soon as he gets home, he has a workout room, and as he gets home, he does his physical workout. He gets on the treadmill, he has weights, and he does that for 45 minutes, and it helps him to feel good and to relax and to get the stress out. Um, and that, of course, is that healthier than having a glass of wine or a shot of whiskey? Yes, yes,
Yes, that's a healthier choice.
yeah, it's a healthier choice. There are people, I'm one of them, who have learned how to meditate. So in meditation, what you do is you learn how to use your mind, and your mind is actually not your brain, but you use both your mind and your brain to move into an altered state of being where you can focus your attention on whatever it is that you want to focus on, and as a result, relaxation is a byproduct. But also there's a lot more positive byproducts through meditation. It helps your digestion. It helps every part of your body. It helps your digestion, helps with pain, helps a lot of different areas. So meditation is a way of using your brain to get the same results with actually positive byproducts. But going back to addictions, what we know now about addictions is that the majority of addictions usually start developing early in life. It begins in childhood when we have, I'm going to say, child abuse, child neglect, and child abandonment. Child abandonment can actually be a mixture of child abuse and child neglect, because when you're neglecting a child or when you're abusing a child, either physically, sexually, or emotionally, or a combination thereof, the child is abandoned, meaning that you're not connected emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually with the child. So the child is all by themselves.
Right. And then the child feels neglected.
And the child feels and is neglected.
And,
It isn't.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I have talked about with my therapist, and written about an incident that I remember when I was about 4, when my mother, who was very challenged to be emotionally present, She was usually struggling emotionally to be present. My mother was in the kitchen. I was probably 6 or 7 feet away from her, and I was in the living room playing on the floor with a toy, and I was aware that I was feeling lonely. And I was very confused by that awareness. It was like, why am I feeling this way since I can see my mom and she's right there? And so the physical presence of the parent is very important, but the emotional presence of the parent is necessary in order for the child to feel like they are being taken care of and they're cared for.
And actually, we see that in breastfeeding mothers, when they are breastfeeding, but they are busy on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Or they're breastfeeding and they are reading something different, looking at, reading a book or looking at their iPhone. So when that eye contact doesn't happen with the infant while breastfeeding, the child feels, alone.
Right.
The child doesn't feel connected.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so if the child is feeling alone and feeling disconnected, the child's emotions are being affected uh, through fear, because the child is going to wonder what is wrong what's wrong with this picture, basically. All children are born narcissistic. What that means is the child is even at the very beginning, when the child comes out of the womb, the child isn't even aware that there's another human being there. It's all about them. They don't even know that there are other human beings alive. They don't know that they've just come out of the womb. It takes them a little while before they become aware that they are separate from the mother. And once they do become aware of that, then they realize not only are they separate, but they're totally dependent on the mother. And that's the beginning of maturing, right? We go through a phase of dependency where we can't do for ourselves and we need someone else to take care of us. And usually it's the mother at the beginning. Then it expands into the father if the father's on the scene. And if the child feels emotionally connected to and taken care of by the mother and by the father, the child feels safe. The opposite of feeling safe is feeling scared. So if the child feels safe enough of the time, we have in psychology the term the good enough parent. And so we use the word enough to say what's enough for one child may or may not be enough for another child. So we're not here to accuse parents, since I'm a parent, I'm also now a grandparent, but we're not here to accuse parents of hurting their children. For the most part, if the parent did their best and really tried to help the child, the parent did their best and tried to help the child.
Right.
But what the child needed may or may not have been, those needs may or may not have been met sufficiently by the parent.
Yeah, I'm a mom to myself, and I know that how much I was mindful of my attendance to my daughter as she was growing up. And looking back, would I change anything that I did? Yes, I probably would have done more of what I did versus, changing anything I did, right? I think everything I did was fantastic, but I had to do more. Right. So now I know the need of doing more of, even it was fantastic parenting, right? And I'm saying that with confidence because I know the steps I took. But would I go back and do more of the same? Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to have to take a break right now, and we will join you in a couple of moments, and we will continue this discussion.
Please join us again. So welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 490 AM, ABC News Radio. We're talking about addictions, traumas, codependency, and relationships. And focus of this episode is on codependency and food addictions, right?
Well, we're
And
talking.
then, yeah, that's how we started.
Yeah, that
Right,
food addiction and codependency
right.
are the most common, the most
The most
ubiquitous,
common.
most commonly
Right,
used addictions.
right.
But then, of course, there's all the other
All the
addictions.
other ones. Right.
Um, Most commonly, the other addictions are gambling,
Yes.
which is a big one, and then, of course, alcohol and legal and illegal drugs.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And then to a degree, but what is known as sex addiction, which those terms, by the way, are changing. And we like to hear from your experience. So please call us 951-922-3532. This is your show, this is your program, and we're here for you. So please feel free to contact us and share your experience.
Mhm.
And the microphone is yours, Dr. Jaffe.
Right. So at the break, we were talking about uh, that many addictions um, come from negative experiences that we went through starting as children.
Right.
And so we were talking about how a baby feels. And a baby doesn't know at the very beginning when they come out of the womb that they are a separate being and that, well, they know that they exist. They know that. But what they don't know is that anyone else exists.
Right.
Yeah. So I used the term before that we are born narcissistic, meaning that we are the center of the universe. And does a baby take things personally? Yes, everything is personal to the baby. Because the baby is the most important person in the world to them, right?
Well, baby thinks about survival,
Thinks
right?
about survival
Yeah.
and what is it they need.
Well, what they need is for their survival,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, depending
They want
upon
food, they want a dry diaper, they want to be held. Other than that, if that doesn't happen, they can't survive.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I kind of, I know we say that kids or children or infants are narcissistic. They have narcissistic, tendency in them. Uh, but I think if they don't be that way, if they are not that way, they won't survive.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, narcissism is just a term.
A term, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And usually, as adults, we use the term as a negative term. That people, oh, you're a narcissist, meaning that you only care about yourself. There is such a thing as a narcissistic personality disorder, where the person gets a lot of their sense of self-worth in the reflection of other people. So the narcissist is the person who's always seeking other people's approval, and if you don't approve of the narcissist, the narcissist will go on your I'm going to call it your shit list,
Right.
right? And will hate you because you're not giving them the reflection back to them that they think they deserve.
Exactly.
Yeah, this comes from the Greek myth of Narcissus, who was supposedly a very, very handsome man, and thought that he was, the cat. In the 20s, they had an expression called the cat's meow, meaning the best ever, right? The cat's meow. You're the cat's meow. You're the best ever. And he was just walking by a lake, and of course in those days they didn't have mirrors, but he was walking by a lake and took a look in the lake, and saw this man, and he looked into the lake and he saw this man standing there, and eventually he realized that was him, and he was so enamored by his beauty and his good looks that he couldn't move away from the lake, and he just kept standing there until he died. And that's the legend of Narcissus, excuse me. So that's where we get the name narcissistic or the term narcissistic. Narcissism, again, it's a personality disorder in the diagnostic manual of mental disorders, but it also is on a scale, as everything is. And so there are people with narcissistic tendencies or qualities, and then there are people who have the actual disorder, which much fewer people have the actual disorder. but narcissism is not a bad thing in terms of if it means caring about yourself and self-care, right? So when you take good care of yourself, you're exhibiting narcissistic qualities because you're thinking you're important enough to take care of. But that's healthy. That's not unhealthy. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because that's how the baby determines whether they are good or bad, whether they are loved or not loved, whether they are wanted or not wanted, whether they are handsome or ugly, whatever it is and as a young child, we think in terms of all or nothing. We think in terms of black and white. Our thinking is very simplistic. Some adults grow up that way too. Their thinking is all or nothing. But we now know that as a child, that's the way the child thinks, and so the child gets their personality validated through the eyes of the parent. And if the parent looks at them and says, "Wow, you're incredible. You're a terrific human being. So glad you're here. So glad you're my child. And I'm here to help you develop yourself in whatever way you need to develop, I'm right behind you, but I'm not going to force my ideas on you. I will share with you what my thoughts are and my beliefs, and give you the opportunity to evaluate it as you get older and older, to see if that fits for you or not." And then the child says, "Oh, my parent really believes in me. My parent really thinks highly of me, and so therefore I can begin to adopt that view of myself." Now, if the parent is immature and the parent is doing comparisons and gives the child a positive comparison, "You're so much better than your sister. You're so much better than Johnny down the street. You're so much better than da 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 da," then you get an inflated sense of self, and then your narcissism can become unhealthy. But if you have a more realistic and you say, "You're terrific, and there are other people who are terrific also, and what we want is to understand and respect other people and have them understand and respect you," then we're giving the child, a realistic sense of who they are. If the child doesn't get that positive reflection, the child develops a negative self-image. The negative self-image then morphs into self-doubt, self-criticism, and if it continues, into self-hate. If we're walking around with a sense of self-hate, negative self-image, and we're constantly putting ourselves down and criticizing us, we're in pain. It's a psychic pain. And if we've learned to do it for our whole lives, we're not even aware that we're doing it because it's subconscious.
It becomes so like breathing.
It becomes like breathing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we do that and we're not aware that we're doing that, then it's much harder for us to take risks in life that might bring us more joy, because we want to hold on to the things that we already have that make us feel safe and secure. And we also don't think that other people are going to value us very much because we don't value ourselves. So if we find someone who does value us, we stick to them like glue. And part of us thinks, "Oh, they must be crazy," because it's the old Groucho Marx again for the younger generation who's maybe listening. A comedian from the 40s and 50s used to say, "Any club that would have me as a member, I wouldn't want to be a member of," meaning that if you think highly of me and I know that I'm really not that great, then there must be something wrong with you. Right. So
Yeah, this is a very good example that I can use for one of my clients.
exactly. Right. So so what happens then if we're walking around with emotional pain and we're not aware that we're walking around with emotional pain? One of the things that might happen, this doesn't always happen, but one of the things that might happen is that we turn to addictions. So Two 16-year-old boys go into a party, and neither one of them has had alcohol, and they're both offered alcohol, and so they're in the party, and they want to both be accepted and be in the in crowd, so they both take a drink. One of them takes a drink and says to themselves, "Yeah, this is kind of nice. I like this." But at the same time, it's not that big a deal. I can take it or leave it. The other one takes a drink and goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, I feel so good. I feel so great. This is incredible. Why didn't I do this before?" And then wants another drink. Okay. So what's the difference between the two? One of the differences may be that that the one who is taking the drink and says this is good, but it's not that good, and I can take it or leave it, isn't carrying a great deal of emotional pain, so he's not getting a great deal of relief when he takes the drink. It changes how he feels, just like it changes how it feels with the other kid, but the change in feeling is not that drastic because he's already feeling good. So he's feeling,
Without a drink.
yeah, without the drink, he's feeling good. He takes the drink, he feels good. So, okay, I feel good, and if now I feel good, it's fine. I could take it or leave it. The other one hasn't been feeling good, takes the drink, and now all of a sudden he feels much better because his emotional pain is numbed.
Right.
So now he's getting relief from the emotional pain that he didn't even realize that he was having. And so he wants another drink. And we can see how this leads to addictions, right?
Yeah, and then some, and then the next thing we know, like you said, is addiction.
It can lead into can lead into addiction.
The same thing with food, you grab one slice of pizza, say, okay, I'm just gonna have a bite, right?
Right.
And then before you know it, you're done with a large pizza by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you're wondering, did I eat all of that? I mean, how can a person eat a whole? I mean, I have literally seen that happen. How can a person eat a whole large pizza, right, and not realize it that they have done it?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But it happened. But it's sort of like any addiction, like with drinking. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they say one is too many, and 100 is not enough.
Right.
Because what you're trying to do is kill off those negative feelings, and those negative feelings won't be killed off. They can be numbed. But what happens eventually is you develop a tolerance for it, so you need more and more in order to numb it. And eventually it doesn't work at all, but you're still trying because you got the relief at one point. So that's how it works.
Wow. I mean, like you said, see, all of these are happening at the subconscious level.
Right.
So the problem becomes that, those who are not aware of their subconscious or having a subconscious, by the time they realize that, they're doing something that does not make them happy, or they are repeating a behavior that they don't know where is it coming from, right? They're already at the addiction level when they realize that.
Exactly. And some people never do. Some people become addicts when they're very young, and die as addicts. And some people die, of course, from overdoses, right? So if you're taking drugs or alcohol, and you're developing a tolerance for it, you do what you said about the pizza. You're not aware that you've taken 10 shots.
Yeah.
And if someone can say to you, okay, if you're an alcoholic and they see you drinking 10 shots, let's say they're a close friend, or let's say they're a partner, a lover, a husband, wife. Honey, you drank, you kept drinking. No, I only had one or two. Right? Because you're not aware that you're actually doing it, because it's a subconscious kind of thing.
Yes. And then, when you are able to lose control in one area of life, it's not a surprise to lose control in another area of life too.
It's possible, yeah.
Right. So if you have one form of addiction, it's easy to pick up another form of addiction.
Correct.
So you can actually have, a substance or alcohol addiction, and then have a process addiction as well.
Right. And a process addiction, again, is something that you do in order to get that high feeling, such as gambling, right? And we say that people who are compulsive gamblers, they don't get satisfied when they win, because what they're looking for is that shot of norepinephrine and adrenaline that comes with what's going to come up next. You get
Yeah.
you pull the card, you get the inside straight, you're really excited because you won.
Yes.
You pull the card, you come up with an inside straight, you think you won, and then somebody has a full house and you lost. Now you're really distraught, but you're getting the same shot of adrenaline.
What you're talking about reminded me of an experience I had. I'm not a gambler. I really, even when I go to Vegas, I don't play. I do many other things such as shopping, such as just relaxing by the pool. But I don't play. I just, I'm not a player to begin with, and besides, I'm kind of cheap in that sense, so I don't want to lose my money.
Yeah.
But there have been occasions where I just looked at people playing, and I was stunned at one of the casinos that I was, and I realized that how when there is a person like that you just described, they actually brought food to the table so that the person doesn't get up and interrupt his process.
Of course.
So the person was eating, and I bet you anything that he did not even realize what he was eating, right? And then while playing, so the eyes were on the chips, the eye were on the dice, the eye were on the cards, but the hands were on one hand was on all those gambling things, and then the other hand was on a drink and on the food. The fork was going into something and into the mouth, but I'm certain that they didn't realize what they were eating.
Yeah.
Or what they were drinking.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's an altered state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they were in an altered
and
state.
I was just looking at that, and the person who was gambling, and I felt so sad, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I felt such a sadness that while you were talking about it, I just remembered it. And it's such a hurtful process to go through.
Yeah.
We just got our cue about, our commercial break, right?
So we're going to take a quick break, and hopefully you will join us after the break. We'll continue our discussion.
Absolutely. Welcome back from our commercial break. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. We are talking about addictions and trauma, codependency, and relationships, and we actually are focusing on addictions and in different areas that happens.
And where addictions come from.
Right. And wherever they come from, yes.
So we've been talking today about that many addictions come from emotional pain. A large amount of addictions come from emotional pain, that and a lot of that is subconscious. Especially if it occurred in childhood. Now we're adults, we're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 or older, and our childhood is behind us at a conscious level. But the subconscious is very interesting, because the subconscious doesn't know about time. And so something that happened to us 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago is still alive in our subconscious. And it's sort of like, how do we know that that's true? There's a poem about footprints in the sand, right? And so if you see footprints in the sand, you know that somebody's been there.
Right.
You don't have to actually see that there's a person there. You know that somebody's been there. And so what are the footprints of somebody who has abuse? Is that they have an addiction, or as you were saying before the program took a break, maybe a number of addictions. One addiction can be replaced by another, or can be added to another, and these addictions serve to numb emotional pain. And so, if one addiction isn't working, then you can try a different addiction, and that might work too for a while. But all it does really is numb the pain. It doesn't alleviate the pain. What I said at the beginning of the program was, with addictions you get relief, but you don't get release.
Right.
So, but people who have been living in pain for many years don't recognize that they're carrying pain, and don't recognize that there's anything that they can do about it except to get temporary relief from it. So it's sort of like if you got a tumor in your brain, but you can take aspirin or Tylenol, and all of a sudden you don't feel the pressure anymore. The aspirin or the Tylenol is a lifesaver, because it's like, wow, I don't feel that pressure anymore. But the aspirin or Tylenol will only last for a certain period of time. Then it begins to wear off, and then you feel the pressure again. And if you don't deal with the tumor will eventually kill you.
Right.
And so, is it true about our emotional pain? Will the emotional pain kill us? Well, one thing we can say for sure is that the emotional pain will kill off our aliveness. It kills off our aliveness. And what does that mean? It means that we can find less and less joy in life, because we feel heavy. We don't feel like anything, like life holds anything for us anymore. We become depressed. We suffer with anxiety, and then our addictions take up our time. And after we've been doing it for a long period of time, the addictions start to become old, even for us. And then we go, well, what has life got for me? And we don't recognize that there are things that can be done by ourselves that can help us to not just get relief, but can actually give us release from that. As psychotherapists, I'm a big believer, and you are too, that psychotherapy is very powerful and very effective in helping people get to what we call our core issues, which are issues usually that developed in childhood. But first, the person has to be open to exploring.
Oh, that's significant. You know, you and I know that we face clients that they find that to be very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they find that if they talk about their childhood and how they have been attended to as a child by their caregiver or their parents, that there is such a profound sense of shame and guilt and fear and
Mm-hmm.
sinfulness that prevents them to go back to their childhood and see how they actually, on their own, because of their experiences that they had in the environment that they grow up, they actually have formed this, what I call it, a blueprint of life for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? Because is one thing that they have witnessed certain behaviors and attitudes and about themselves as a child coming from an external force. And here, external force can be parent, can be a sibling, can be a grandparent, can be a teacher, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are so many forces out there that they impact us,
right?
But how my blueprint is formed is formed by the meaning that I give to those events,
right,
about myself,
yes,
right? And then I apply that in different areas of my life as I grow up, and I keep expanding on that blueprint. Mm-hmm. Without knowing that I'm the one who I am shaping my own life.
Right. So, yeah. Right. So it isn't just what happens to us.
Right.
It's our reaction and responses.
Responses. The meaning making, basically, I call it.
Meaning making. Meaning making. Yes.
Right.
It's the responses, the meaning that we attributed to it. And so, let's say, for example, Using my example, I was talking earlier about being 4 years old and watching my mother cooking in the kitchen. I was about 6 or 7 feet away, and I knew I was feeling lonely, and I couldn't understand what that was about. That loneliness then made me feel like there was something wrong with me.
Right.
Because here my mom is there. I thought to myself, she loves me. She's cooking dinner for me, and there's no reason for me to be feeling lonely. There must be something wrong with me. So when you were using the expression meaning making, that was the meaning that I came up with at age 4.
Right.
There's something wrong with me because I'm feeling lonely and I shouldn't be.
Right.
Right.
And so that's the blueprint of the meaning of there is something wrong with me. It's something that you can either resolve or carry it with you to the next level.
Exactly. Now, again, I didn't say, even though I could talk at age 4, I didn't say to my mother, Mom, I'm feeling lonely and I think there's something wrong with me. This was just something that I thought in my own privacy of my own mind. Right.
And your mom had no clue.
And my mom had no clue, so she couldn't respond to it, and probably wouldn't have even known how to respond to it now looking back. But at least if I had said it, at least there could have been some idea that there was a problem. Right. And if she couldn't respond to it, she might have talked to somebody else, and maybe they could have found a solution, or at least help me in some way. But I kept it in.
Right.
And so here's what happens. So we believe that there's something wrong with us. I gave an example of why I believe there's something wrong with me. There can be any number of reasons why we believe there's something wrong with me. My mom yells at me. My dad hits me. I'm criticized. I'm told I'm no good. I'm compared negatively to my brother or sister. There can be any number of reasons why I feel like there's something wrong with me.
Right.
But once I do feel like there's something wrong with me, then I have to figure out what it is. So the way that our brain works is it works by association. So if I start off with the belief that there's something wrong with me, I'm going to send my brain into search mode to find out what it is. And my mind will go on indefinitely until I come up with one thing or several things that I believe is it.
Right.
So in my case, I thought I had a problem in school. I was an underachiever in school. I didn't fail my classes. I got C's and B's, but I didn't really pay that much attention in school because I was suffering with emotional pain that was distracting to me. All of this was unknown to my parents and to me, but I didn't think I was very smart.
That's the meaning you gave
to you?
That's
the meaning. That's what my brain came up with. Oh, right. I'm not very smart.
I'm not very smart.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually, I was in like maybe 4th grade or 5th grade, and my mom was having a meeting with one of the teachers, and I wasn't doing that well in the class, and the teacher said in front of me to my mom, he's okay, and he said it in front of me. He said, he'll do okay, but don't ever think that he's going to go to college.
Wow.
And my mother, to her credit, said, how dare you say that? My son is bright and he'll do whatever he wants. And the fact that he said it was not as important to me as the fact that my mother defended me.
Exactly.
And I thought to myself, maybe I'm not stupid, And as it turned out, I wasn't. As it turned out, I was able to get my college degree. I was able to get my master's and even go on for my doctorate. And now I know that I'm not stupid, but the belief that I was very problematic.
And that's the key word, the belief that we, designed for ourselves, the belief that we stay with, that the perception that we develop about ourselves and the world around us are those, meaning making, all those blueprints that I'm talking about. And once we establish one and we stay with it, we keep building it up.
Right. And we actually we select out information that supports our belief.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and of course, as we do that, we get more information that supports our belief. And
Yeah.
now,
Oh, yeah.
and now, if someone says, "Well, why do you think that?" We can come up with talk about it for 10 hours as to why we think that. Well,
Exactly.
here's what happened, and here's what happened, and here's what happened. Not recognizing that we had a big part in how we selectively filtered out information and made it fit our perception.
Exactly. And then, that's the challenge for many of clients to see. So how do I detect that, something like that? When I say something and the client says, yes, but.
Right, right,
The minute I say, well, you're doing this and you're doing that, and I'll say, yes, but what about
right.
this I'm not doing? What about that? What about this? So when there is so much of a yes, but, that's exactly, the person is challenging, themselves to look at, what is not part of that blueprint, what is not part of that perception.
When you give somebody
Yeah.
information that is not consistent with their self-image,
Right.
then it's hard for them to accept that new
That new
information.
information, yes.
Yeah,
And I tell my clients, when we have a new information that we cannot have an association with, we say, I don't know about this, let me think about it.
right,
So we actually don't know what to do with the new information for a moment or so, right?
exactly.
But once we have these established beliefs about ourselves, we are able to talk about the concepts that fit within that frame of mindset
Mhm.
for many time, and then go for negativity and so on and so on and so on, and there is no end to it.
Right.
And there's so many yes but, so many cognitive distortions, so many things in
Yeah.
that box, in that
Absolutely,
frame.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this has been great, and next time I think we're going to go further into this,
Absolutely.
and talk about what happens when we become aware that we have unresolved pain inside of us. How do we go about healing that? And what is that process? And of course, we're big believers in psychotherapy, but it's also possible to help you heal on your own, and we're going to talk about that as well.
As well. So until next Thursday, 3 o'clock, where we talk about human sexuality, and at 4 p.m., we talk about addictions, trauma, codependency, and relationships. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget that all you need is love.
All you need is love.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.